to Veggies by EOS. Today I'm actually at the side of my table instead of at my table because I just filmed a haul video, so you should totally check that out once that goes live. But now I will be talking about money and finance and how I saved over $10,000 after my first year of teaching. So first of all, as many of you probably know already, teachers don't make that much money. I think that's a pretty common fact. And I got my last paycheck from my first year teaching just the other day, 2 days ago. By the time this goes up, it'll probably be a week and a half. So I just recently got my very last paycheck from my first year teaching. So from now on, the rest of my paychecks will be from my second year. But I wanted to make this video now because I got like one complete cycle, like one full year worth of checks for a teacher's salary. And I just kind of want to go through what I do, how I budget, because I think my budgeting is different than what other people call budgeting. I spend a lot less time budgeting, if that's what you call it. I mean, what I do is technically budgeting. I just don't like to call it that. I'm going to explain what I do, how I saved all the money, and just my situation. Coming into my first year teaching, I thankfully had no student loan. I had scholarships, grants, went to a school that tuition wasn't very expensive, which it's funny when I tell people that because like it was still very expensive, but comparing it to other universities, it was honestly very cheap. So I had a ton of stuff paying for pretty much all of my tuition, and then I was very lucky for my rent payments when I was in college. I did have a job which paid for like basically everything besides rent, so like, you know, food, books, things that came up. I had a dog, so stuff for my dog. Wow, good timing. What I was saying was my grandma actually paid for my rent throughout college, except for like a month here and there. But for the most part, my grandma paid for my rent, which was really nice of her. So I got really lucky and didn't end up having any student loan debt. I did have some debt going into my first year teaching, and what that was from my dog's surgery. She actually needed ACL surgery, and it was while I was student teaching. And if anyone is a teacher, you would know it's like nearly impossible to have a job during student teaching. What I did during student teaching was I dog walked, so I had a job, but it was very minimal, like not many hours at all. So I made maybe $50 a week. So student teaching, super stressful time. I was making like no money, and that's when I figured out that my dog needed ACL surgery. And I'm sorry about the dogs walking around right now. I'm babysitting a dog too. He's right here in front of me. Actually, let me take this off and show you. Hey! Oh, he does not look happy. Yikes. You wanna say hi? So this is not Kaya. He kind of looks like Kaya. Kaya's right there. She's the one that was barking. But yeah, so I do apologize for their barking, and they're walking around because I know you can probably hear it, and I'm sorry. So what I was saying, my dog needed this really big, expensive surgery, and I like had talked to friends and stuff and found a vet that was like really good, you know, highly qualified. Like my friends had that surgery done there with their dogs, except that he charged a lot less than typical ACL surgery charges. So I forget the exact price, but she ended up needing that surgery and another surgery later on. The other surgery wasn't nearly as much as that, but overall between both surgeries, it was, I want to say $2,300, somewhere in that range. A little bit over $2,000. So for someone who like barely had a savings, because it was the end of my college career, like I barely had a savings, and I couldn't work because I was student teaching. I was working the most I could, which was dog walking occasionally. So my only two options were put the surgeries on credit cards or borrow money from my sister. And thankfully my sister was able to loan me all of that money, and I ended up paying her back. As I'll talk about. But yeah, thankfully I got money from my sister, was able to pay for the surgery, which by the way, I had to sleep on the ground for like, I think 4 weeks during student teaching. I was on a mattress on the ground, but still, like I was on the ground with my dog who had a cone on during student teaching. I remember the first night after the surgery, I literally went in and had a horrible day, and I had like 2 hours of sleep and I almost started crying. It was pretty bad. I'm getting off topic. So my only debt going into my first year teaching was about $2,000 that I owed to my sister. And the summer before I taught, I had 2 jobs. So one was this kind of like camp type, teaching type thing for 2 weeks, and it paid pretty well, but like I said, it was only 2 weeks long. So overall I didn't make that much money from it, but it did pay really, really well when I did it. And then my other job was a delivery driver for just like a local restaurant around here. And let me tell you, if you're looking for a summer job, like especially for like a teacher or something, you make a lot of money delivery driving. So I was able to kind of start to build up my savings and start to pay my sister back before I even started my first year teaching. So that was really nice because I did make a lot of money. I didn't end up delivery driving this past summer. I can talk more about what I did this past summer in a different video if you want. But basically the reason why I decided not to was it's just kind of dangerous in the city I live in. I just didn't want to risk it. And I had other ways of income this past summer, so it ended up being fine. So yeah, going into my first year teaching, I had like a decent little chunk of savings. I don't remember how much it was. Like, it wasn't that much, but it was at least something to get me started. The dog I'm babysitting is snoring, so I'm sorry. That's really loud. So after getting about 2 or 3 paychecks of my first year teaching on that new salary, I was able to pretty much completely pay my sister off. I forgot exactly when it was, but I think it was about 3 paychecks, and the fact that I had money saved up from my delivery job, which paid well. So yeah, in about October-ish was when I paid my sister off, and at that point I had no debt. I've never had credit card debt. I always pay off my credit cards on time, like in full when I get them. Actually, I should add, I used to pay my credit cards once a month, like on the same day every month, like 100% in full, but it was just the once a month in full. And now what I do is every single time I get paid, I pay them off in full. And I kind of like that because it really, really forces you to just pay them off in full, and it forces you to do it every month, so like your payments aren't as big. Because I mean, when I was paying it once a month, sometimes my credit card bill would be like, wow, like that's a lot of money. So I do pay off all of my credit cards in full twice a month, every single time I get paid, which is twice a month. So that's number 1 tip I would recommend. Pay off your credit cards just every time you get paid. If you get paid every week or something like that, that's a little excessive, so don't do that. But if you get paid like the 2 times a month or every other week, like bi-weekly or whatever, I would recommend just paying off all of your credit cards in full, like the day you get your check, which is what I do every single day I get a check. And I do have 3 credit cards, by the way. They're all for different types of points, so I use them in different ways, but I use 2 of them a lot more than I use the third. The third is kind of just there just in case. I occasionally use it like on online purchases, but that's really about it. No matter what, all those credit cards you have need to be paid off right away when you get your check. And I understand some of you might have a lot of outstanding credit card debt, so that this isn't going to be realistic for you, but if you are in the shape with your money that you can do that, that is your number 1 thing you need to do. And number 2 is to use credit cards. I guess I probably should have said this first, but credit cards give you points. If you know how to use a credit card, you can use it really well. You can boost your credit score. I have a really good credit score now. Kind of learned all the tips and tricks. The main thing with it, number 1, you want to make sure your credit limit is as high as possible, and you know, I know some banks are more lenient and less lenient with that, but there's something, I forget exactly what it's called, but there's something that takes the percentage of what you spend and how much you have. Like, say, just to make numbers easy, say your credit limit is $10,000 and you spend $1,000 every month, you're only using 10% of your limit, so you're only using this much when you have this much. If your limit was only $1,000 and you spent that $1,000, you have this much and you're using this much. And that looks really, really, really bad to credit card companies that you're, even if you pay it off every month, that still looks really bad that you're constantly maxing out your credit score. Not credit score, your credit utility rate, I guess. I don't know. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Right now, like, even pause this video, call your bank, ask if you can even raise it by like $500 or $1,000, like that'll still help, but you do want it to be as big as possible, so that when you do make a purchase, like, it's only using this much up of your entire credit limit. So that is one thing I take advantage of. I have very high credit limits, so I use a very small percentage of those credit limits, which helps my credit score. And like I already mentioned, the other great thing about credit cards is the points. So really, as long as you're paying off your credit card in full every month, you should be using a credit card on basically all of your purchases. I would have to do the math. That'd actually be kind of interesting to see how much money I've saved just by using points. But I know one of my credit cards right now has $53 that I can redeem just because I used the credit card. And I'm going to redeem that either this month or next month. So that's just $50 that's free money. By the time I redeem it, it'll probably be like $60 or something like that. So $60 of literally just free money just because instead of using cash or check, I use a credit card. So that is my second tip, just use a credit card. There are other YouTube videos that explain credit cards better than what I just did and more depth than what I just did. So if you need to learn more about credit cards, check out other videos. My third thing is to just try not to spend money. And I know that sounds kind of like, okay, like you can't just not ever spend money. But what I mean by this is, you know, try not to spend money on clothes, try not to go out to eat, try not to buy things that you don't need, like little house trinkets and stuff like that. Every time you pick something up in the store to buy it, double check yourself and kind of think, do I really need this? How much is it? Is it really worth that money? Is what I make, like, is this really gonna make me that much happier to spend? And you know, if it's only $1, it might be easier to just be like, yeah, whatever, it's $1. But if it's like a $50 thing, you know, thinking about, okay, how much is my paycheck? Like, how much, like, is that much of my paycheck really worth this thing that I want? And most of the time, the answer is going to be no. I know there's the typical things like rent and food that you obviously need to spend money on, but other than that, I've really been trying to just not spend money on other things. And overall, I mean, I've been doing a lot better job than I was like in college. I'd buy like clothes and stuff and random stuff I didn't need, and just now it's a lot easier to just say no and not buy stuff you don't need. Going along with that, if you watch Jordan Page, which if you don't watch Jordan Page, you totally should. She's awesome. She has this thing called money freeze, or no, spending freeze, that's what it's called. And basically it means for one entire week, you literally do not spend any money at all, like nothing, $0 in 1 week. And I tried this, the week I did it, I think I was successful, except I needed gas one day, which, like, you know, obviously you need gas to get to work. But other than that, I was successful for the 1 week I tried it. And then I tried doing it, because her thing is you should try to do 1 week-long spending freeze each month. And I kind of tried doing that, but I just found it like, I'd be like, oh, I need like this one thing that's like $2, but then it breaks my spending freeze, and then I have to start over with the spending freeze. Or like, oh, I need gas, or oh, I need to pay a bill, or oh, I need to go grocery shopping, or oh, I only need eggs at the grocery store. And it was just getting in my head, and I was like, you know what, this is just messing with me. So I decided to try to do a 10-day spending freeze. So what I decided to do instead of a week-long spending freeze is just to do 10 days throughout the month. So instead of 7 days in a row, it was 10 days, like maybe this Thursday and next Tuesday and Wednesday and this Friday and Saturday. Like, I just tried doing 10 random days throughout the month of no spending, and that worked for a few months. I was successful with that for a few months, but I just found myself constantly thinking in my head, like, wait, did I spend money today? Or like, there'd be one little thing I'd want, and then again, it would get in my head, wait, I probably shouldn't buy that one thing because I want it to be a day where I'm not spending money. And honestly, as long as you just have the mentality that I was explaining before of like, do I really need something? As long as you have that mentality, I don't think spending freezes are necessary. Like, I love Jordan Page, and I do think you should challenge yourself to try to do a spending freeze. But trying to do it repetitively, or like the whole month thing that I tried for a few months, it just really, really gets in your head. And might work for some people. It just didn't work for me. It was getting to me too much. And if it doesn't get to you, it might be a good way to help you spend a little bit less money each month. Overall, I don't think it saved me that much money in the long run, and it was causing me more harm than good. That's why I don't do spending freezes anymore. Tip number 4 is basically my way of budgeting, which, I mean, it is budgeting, but like I said, I do budgeting a little bit different than most people. So most people, it sounds like, write out this much on groceries, this much on this much on whatever. And you know, there's some things like rent, utilities. I mean, well, rent's gonna stay the same each month. Utilities are gonna change because there's some months where you're gonna have to blast the AC because it's 95 degrees out, and then like the winter months, you're gonna have to blast the heat because it's like 0 degrees out. So I mean, your bills are gonna fluctuate, rent's gonna stay the same. Like, so in my opinion, there's no reason to write out stuff like that on a budget, because if it's staying the same, it's staying the same. And if it's not, it's not, and there's not that much you can do about it, except, you know, be mindful of your electricity, which I always am. Like, you know, don't leave lights on, unplug things, don't put the AC or heat on unless you really need it on. So, I mean, as long as you're doing that, there's no reason to make a budget for that. Maybe people will get mad at me for saying that. And same thing with food. I did, for a little bit of college, I did make a little like weekly budget for food for myself, but honestly, you know, again, I'm the same way with my food like I am with other things. I look at it, if it's healthy or something, like, yeah, I'll get it, but if it's something I don't need and something that's not healthy, I'll like really look at it a second time and say, do I really need this? And sometimes I'll be grocery shopping and just look at my cart and just pick something up and be like, I really, really don't need this, and I'll just put it back on the shelf. Don't tell the Walmart employees that I put it on the shelf where it doesn't belong. But yeah, like sometimes, like even just at the end of your grocery trip, kind of look back in your cart and be like, okay, I don't really need that or that, and just take like 1 or 2 things out. Another thing I like to try to do is only have one like dessert type item. So if I get ice cream, then I can't get the cookies, or if I get fruit snacks, then I can't get the ice cream or whatever. I can't get the popsicles if I get that. So that helps too, because I know I'm getting some sort of snack. Like I don't need 2 desserts. I only need 1. And with going out to eat, again, I don't limit myself. I really don't go out to eat that much, but when I do, I try to either use a coupon or go when it's a sale day, or go to a place that's kind of cheaper. Like there's one place near my house that's only $10 or $11 for a meal, but they give you so much food that it's like 3 or 4 meals. So, I mean, $11 for like 4 meals is really good. And it's healthy. It's like rice and vegetables and tofu. So I really like that meal. And so I don't feel guilty for going out to eat to a place like that, because it's healthy and I'm getting like 3 or 4 meals and only paying $11. So yeah, I try to go to cheaper places. Like you can even, you know, be at a cheaper place, but it's still healthy. That is possible. So I like to look for places like that. That is one thing I can work on though. Like I can still go out to eat less than I currently do. That's why I don't like budgeting food either, because as long as I'm being consistent with what I do and I'm not going crazy spending money on food, I don't feel there to be a need for me to write down, okay, I spent this much at this grocery store this week and this much at this grocery store and this much going out. Like I don't see the point in tracking all of that. I think that's a waste of time. As long as you're buying the right food for yourself, like not buying a bunch of junk food, not buying a bunch of desserts, not going out to eat that much, you should be fine with your food budget. And that does depend. If you make like a lot less money than I do, I mean, you will have to be tighter with your budget. But I mean, again, still, you don't even need to write it down. You know, like, I can afford this much at the grocery store, so I can't buy that. Or I can buy that, but I can't buy that one. Like, as long as you know, and some people have trouble doing this, but as long as you can figure out what you can and can't afford, there's not really a need or reason to write down your budget for it. So you're probably wondering what my form of budgeting is. So basically all it is that every single time I get a paycheck, I put a quarter of the money from the paycheck into savings. Like no matter what, whenever I get a paycheck, I say, okay, this much percent of my money is for my savings. Usually whatever that amount is, I can just transfer it to my savings right then and there. There are some months that my credit cards are a little bit higher than normal, or like, for example, the month I went on vacation, I spent a little bit too much money in LA. That paycheck I got, I was not able to put all of that money into my savings. I went ahead and paid off my credit cards first. So that's the thing. You never want to put money in your savings instead of paying off a credit card, because you always want to pay off your credit cards in full. So I do put my credit cards at first priority. I first pay off all my credit cards and then put the money into savings. And so every once in a while, like when I went on vacation, for example, I don't have enough money. Like it's usually about 300-ish that I move over to savings. Maybe I only have 200 to move over. So I'll move over the 200, and then that 100 is what I owe myself the next time I get a check. And I do keep track. I do write it down. Like I have a little thing that says I owe myself this much money. Currently it says I owe myself $0, so I'm really proud of myself. But yeah, I always have, if I can't put all the money in, I put it on the I owe myself. And usually by the next check, I completely, like, I'm fine. The only thing that really threw me off was vacation. That actually took me like a month and a half to kind of get everything back in there. But yeah, always, whenever I get a check, I know in my head this quarter of my paycheck, which for me is about $300, goes into my savings. So since I get paid twice a month, that means I'm putting about $600 into my savings monthly. And I do have some other side jobs too, like from the summer, and even now I have other side jobs. That money as well. I have a side job, I get a paycheck, a quarter of that goes into my savings. No matter how much money it was, how little money it was, quarter of it goes into your savings. If that's the only thing you take away from this video, just do that. Just put a quarter into your savings. A little bit more specifically about what my savings is. I have a checking and savings at a local bank near my house, and there I have about $2,500 in my savings at that bank. And then the rest of my savings, which is about $8,000 or so, is in a bank called Ally Bank, which is completely online. I've heard tons of good reviews about it. Some of my friends use it. If you know the Graham Stephan show on YouTube, I really like him. He talks about it. Just overall, I really like it because it has a higher interest rate and it's really easy to use. Like, it's user friendly. It takes like 3 to 5 days for the money to go through if you're making a transfer. So for some of you that might not work, or you might not like that. But if you don't care about how long the money transfer takes, I mean, honestly, it's a really good bank. My biggest mistake I made was not opening up that account earlier, because I actually just opened that account like 2 months ago. And so what I should have done, before that, all of my money was in Chase, basically, like all of my savings. And in case you don't know, and if you have Chase and you don't know this, like, yikes, you gotta get out of Chase. Chase's interest rate is like 0.01, or maybe it's 0.001. It's like you get a penny a year, basically. Like, it's ridiculous. Or maybe it's a penny a month, I don't know. Either way, or that's still bad. 12 cents versus a penny, which one would you rather take? So I moved all of my money into the Ally Bank. I'm making some decent interest. I've only had it for like 2 months, but by the time, like a year from today, I'd like to know what my total interest is gonna be. It's going to be over $100. I know that much at least, but I don't know exactly how much it'll end up being. I'm really happy I switched to this bank, and I'm not telling you to switch to this bank specifically. Just switch. If you don't have a high interest rate for your bank, you need to switch banks for your savings. Like, you need to switch to a high interest account. And I mainly did this because I was watching Graham Stephan's videos, and he said that, and I was just like, wow, I'm literally an idiot. Why haven't I done this sooner? So I went ahead and did that a few months ago, and I'm really glad I did. I'm getting a lot of interest already compared to the like literally 1 cent I would normally get at Chase. The main thing you need to do is put your money in your savings and then just leave it there. Like, I've never, at least in the past few years, I've never taken money out of my savings. It's always just putting a quarter of what I make into my savings. It's just go, 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 go. So yeah, that's how I do budgeting. Really, the main takeaway is put a quarter of your money into your savings, and other than that, just be careful of what you spend money on. So that's how I budget. I don't have a spreadsheet, Excel, like anything. Like, I don't go crazy about counting money, because I used to do that, and it's, in my opinion, it's just a waste of time. I really hope that snoring isn't too loud. He's snoring down there. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. I typically make videos about food, vegetarian lifestyle type things, food reviews, vegetarian versus carnivore. So if you're interested in any of that type of stuff, go ahead and subscribe. I am really passionate about finance and money and how to save money. So if you have any types of video ideas for anything relating to money, like if you like this video, I can make more about money because it is something I really, really enjoy talking about. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you might be interested in my other content, and like this video. Bye! So after getting about 2 or 3 paychecks